Recording. Hi, I'm Sarah Barrick Neal, Gallery Manager with the Glen Arbor Arts Center. Today, as part of the Arts Center's Food is Art, Art is Food exhibition, I'm in conversation with two people who are deeply involved with the cultural, agricultural, and social movement known as Native Food Sovereignty. Amanda Weinert is the curriculum specialist with the Little Traverse Bay Bands of Odawa Indians. And Joe VanAlstine is the chairman of ZB Midjwang Inc., a nonprofit formed by the Little Traverse Bay Band to oversee 311-acre farm in Emmett County. Let me start our conversation before we start talking by putting Native food sovereignty into context. And this is thanks to the National Indian Council on Aging. They write, food and food production are fundamentally important to Native communities' health, well-being, economic resilience, cultural heritage, and self-preservation. Restoring food sovereignty to Native communities requires the reintroduction of indigenous food production, distribution practices, and infrastructure. Food sovereignty initiatives empower tribal members living on the reservations to grow their own healthy, fresh produce, ease low food insecurity, and prevent heart disease and type 2 diabetes. So, Amanda, let me start with you. If you could give us an overview of how you tackle the challenges of restoring Native food sovereignty through your work.
Well, I'm really lucky that I'm able to incorporate some of my own personal thoughts and beliefs about food sovereignty into the work that I do with the curriculum work, because I am able to bring traditional foods into the classroom and create lessons about that. But really thinking about food sovereignty is reconnecting and relearning the old ways so we can really nurture ourselves better and be self-sufficient. And, you know, just realizing that woods, your yard, the swamp next door is your pantry and your medicine cabinet, and really bringing that to the table when talking to educators and students too.
I love that. I love that so much. Joe, why don't you take the question on in the context of your work at ZB Midjwang Farm?
So, with that, our statute requires that we, create, what we think is food sovereignty within our LTBB reservation and within our tribe. And so that is bringing back cultural practices, cultural teachings, growing traditional medicines, growing traditional foods, but then also growing, our people to relearn these activities that we've done and we used to do and we're continuing to do. So.
Again, I'm going to an outside resource here. The Centers for Disease Control says that Native American adults are twice as likely to be diagnosed with diabetes than the general population. Many of these illnesses are suspected to be the cause of problems created through bad nutrition. Dr. Martin Reinhardt, an Anishinaabe Ojibwe citizen of the Sault Ste. Marie tribe, and a professor at Northern Michigan University, created the Decolonizing Diet Project in 2016 in response to some of this. Amanda, you participated in that. Can you talk a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, it was a really great learning experience. And it really transformed my way that I think about really utilizing my treaty rights. Thinking about them before, I thought of, hunting and fishing, but it's really, it opened my eyes to thinking about learning everything around you and being able to go outside and walk around and be like, oh, there's some horsetail, some mint, some mullein, and really learning plants too, to utilize those knowledge systems that have been taken away from us too. So I think it was really a good time where we were able to come together as a community of people that were doing it at the same time too, and learn together how to use different traditional foods and how to forage them. And it was a really good learning experience. And at that time too, really worked out. I found out that I was really allergic to gluten, like a severe allergy, and everything on the Decolonizing Diet Project is gluten-free. So that was perfect when I was going through that transition of changing my diet anyways. So it was definitely a lot of work, realizing how we put together foods and process foods, that our ancestors did. And now we realized what the efforts were to do that back then, and then we're still continuing it right now. And it was really great, and it's really been an inspiration to a lot of the work that I do still, and a lot of the learning that I want to continue doing.
I know that Dr. Reinhardt has written an extensive book about the project. In just for our purposes, what's the way you understand what decolonizing a diet means? How would you explain that to someone?
I guess the best way would be looking at the foods that were here post or pre-colonization, and then looking at super hyper local and looking within your community and within the Great Lakes region of what was here before colonization.
Thanks for that. Joe, at the farm, you're bringing back food production that has deep and long roots. The culture from which you descended has an oral tradition, not a written tradition. So how do you relearn historical and ancestral practices and food ways when none of this is written down?
So for this, we really rely upon our elders in this one, because they have that knowledge from their elders and from their elders, and so we are always on the lookout for that knowledge through our elders. And recently, at our community meeting, ZB Mijwang had a giveaway where we gave away bags of sugar or zizbakwa to the community. But with that, we wanted to talk to the community to really understand, what they thought about, sugar and where did it come from, and what their stories were from it. And, we heard some great, amazing stories from some of these elders, about, what they did with it, how they processed it, what they sold it for. And I mean, it was just a really great, moment to listen to these elders talk. And so we're always out there, listening and, trying to, talk with our elders and bring them together out here, to, teach, our staff, and then also, our community members who come out.
Joe, tell me what you grow on ZB Mijwang Farm.
Everything from arugula to zucchini. Nah, that's what our farm manager says. But right now, really, we do have a production side where we do sell to farm markets. So, we grow, arugula, carrots, radishes, zucchini, spring mix, salad mix, spinach. It's really a vegetable side, a vegetable production farm that we use to fund ourselves. But then we also grow traditional heirloom corn. We don't like to call it Indian corn. Like this corn behind me is Red Lake Flint corn. We grow Bear Island Flint corn as well. Recently, we've been growing Gete Okosuan squash, and everyone hears the story about the squash that was found in a clay pot at an archaeological dig. And that's not necessarily true. And it was just a story that somebody put out there to sell these things. But these seeds, through our ancestors and our elders have told us that it was traded between like the Menominee and the Miami for years. And so we do grow this giant squash back, and everyone loves it, and it can feed a bunch of people, and it stays throughout most of the winter, on your shelf. So it's a really stable squash, and people love to see it, and they hold it like a little baby at the farmers markets. So, but yeah, and then we're growing beans. The corn, beans, squash. We grow sunflowers out there as well. We've dipped our hands into the plants, stuff like that. So.
Where are some of these heirloom seeds coming from?
Ancient archaeological days. No.
In beautiful pots.
Right. No, and so with these, a lot of these have been held by seed keepers throughout the Great Lakes region, and continuously grown. But then also, there's been a lot of work to go back to the museums, because the ethnobotanists have gave them to, let's say, University of Michigan. We're working with them right now to rematriate some seeds out of that museum, because we want them to come back home, and with that, we're getting 100 seeds of Odawa black popcorn. We knew this was the last 3 that was grown here. So, it has the provenance of being, grown here in this area by, our tribe. So.
Besides growing food, I would imagine that ZB Midgewong Farm also has a teaching component.
Yes, we do. We want to make sure that we come back and teach our elders, and have our elders connect with our youth. We do workshops up there where we have lacrosse making workshops, we have drum making workshops. We're working on some other tool making workshops like butagans or planting sticks. Those are all in the process of working and bringing the community together to relearn how we would make these traditional tools.
I'm going to quote Dr. Reinhardt, or something that he said. He says, when Native Americans were forced onto reservations, they stopped eating fresh vegetables, wild rice, game, and fish. Government commodity foods replaced the organic, nutrient-rich foods that had been part of their lives for 100 years, or excuse me, hundreds of years. Joe, let me start with you. How do you respond to that?
He's not wrong.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, he's not wrong. And we understand, that what was a problem and issue, but how do we overcome that? How do we, take control of our food sovereignty again, and determine what we want to put into these food packages, and what do we want to eat now? So with that, I'm also the director of the food distribution program here for our tribe. And, we've done a lot of work over the last 20 years to really add fresh produce, to this program, add fresh vegetables to this program. And then we also have a traditional component as well, which that actually does is, allows us to, the U.S. government to purchase wild rice to put in the food package. It allows blue cornmeal, because again, the USDA is an equal opportunity employer. So it provides for the whole entire country. So they want the country to, eat everything the same. So we do have blue cornmeal in there. We have wild rice, we have bison, we have wild caught salmon, catfish, and our most recent addition is wild caught walleye from Red Lake. So this is a very traditional food here for the Great Lakes region. But we've done a lot of work to add more of these traditional foods into the food package. But we also want to make sure that these tribes have some form of economic development to sustain themselves by doing this. So we won't buy wild rice from a non traditional wild rice harvester. So that part is good as well. So there's a lot of work being done to correct those wrongs.
Yeah, it doesn't happen overnight, does it?
No.
Amanda, I'm going to toss this out to you first, and then we'll go back to Joe. I want you to talk a little bit about the connection between food and culture. When a people's foodways and traditions are interrupted or destroyed, how does that affect the people's culture and lifeway?
Well, I think it really goes, I can connect back to what I was saying before, that it was definitely interrupted, but there's a lot of work being done to relearn and reconnect. So I don't want to stress a lot on the atrocities, because they're terrible to think about, but I want to think about like how resilient we are, and that we're learning, we're relearning all this. Yeah, it was taken away from us. It wasn't passed down. Because like within my family, my great grandpa was taken away from his community and put into a boarding school. So that's when everything was cut off. So, we didn't have an Anishinaabe in our family anymore. We didn't have all these foodways either because of that, because, he was taken away. And so it's relearning, really, the whole family learning how to do it too is often the best way to do it, and the whole community doing it together. And learning the best ways to communicate it back and forth through, for everyone, to better connect and to keep these traditions going. Yeah.
Joe, what are your thoughts about this, about the connections between food and culture when all that gets interrupted or suppressed or destroyed?
Food sovereignty is tribal sovereignty, right? And so, for us to, have that access to food and to our culture, is paramount to who we are as a people. And, you know, we hold, ceremonies, we hold fasts, we hold, all of these feasts, around food. And so food needs to be at all of our cultural ceremonies. Our corn soup is at every single ceremony that we have. We have corn soup there. That's a tradition, but then also realizing that there's, different versions of the corn soup. So we want to, bring more of these traditional foods that we used to eat and gathered back to, these ceremonies and these feasts that we have. So I think, ZB Mijuang is on the road and on that path of, bringing these cultural food back to our people, and having them taste it. Really, and I explain to people all the time, the reason why we are connected to walleye is because we know that's the exact same taste that, our ancestors ate. That's what my grandmother, my great grandmother ate. So when we eat that, we feel that, and we feel that's part of them, and so we can connect with them on a different level. And it's just the same thing, when we go out to, the lake, and you look out on that lake, it's the exact same feeling of knowing that this is the exact same lake that your ancestors swam in and canoed on, and relied upon the fish for its survival. So with that, we understand that the two are intrinsically connected. So
This conversation isn't just happening in a vacuum. I was spurred on to connect with you guys because the Art Center is offering, as part of the Food is Art exhibition, free viewing of the 2020 documentary Gather. That can be seen on the Glen Arbor Art Center website from July 19 to August 14. Gather focuses on 4 different groups from the Plains states to the West Coast who are involved with the food sovereignty movement. And one of the things I found so interesting is how they're doing it in the 21st century, taking the old traditions, the ancient ways, and bringing them into the future, and figuring out how to restore them here and now. Gather, as I said, can be viewed online, along with a lot of other information and programs about the Food is Art exhibition. The website is glenarborart.org, and you click on exhibits. The Food is Art exhibition is in the Art Center Gallery and online through August 19. And I have to say, thank you so very much, Joe and Amanda. This was just a quick overview. I appreciate how well you're able to talk about something that's got so many layers and is very complex and old and intertwined. I'm so appreciative. And thanks to everyone else who watched this interview. And we'll see you next time.